If you saw the third in this series of SG videos, you saw my buddy Steve Selvage from the Hold Steady with his 335. And while on the road, two of his 335s had road repairs. And he's bringing me the second one as well. But the one you heard in the video was a victim of such a road repair. And when they put it all back together, they didn't use the tooth washers on the volumes, and they didn't get them tight to the wood because you really can't tighten them to the wood without the tooth washers. And so the pots were spinning, and of course, this stupid Black Beauty cap, which does nothing tonally other than being an insecure connection, broke right there at the cap connection. I don't know whether this is an original Black Beauty or one of the reproductions people do, like those bumblebees that Gibson sells for so much money these days. It's just a cheap film cap with a bumblebee cover. I'll stick a picture of that in case you don't believe me. But it's just a rip-off scheme. Let's see, I think I've got an original Black Beauty here. Yeah, I pulled this from an amp. This is the Sprague Black Beauty people go nuts about for guitars. It's leaking terribly when it uses an amp, and I won't use this in a guitar because it makes no difference. The capacitance values makes a difference. I know people don't believe that, and whatever. People spend a lot of money to avoid time with the metronome, but it's just the case. And even if this were the best capacitor in the world and it really did make you play like God, this is a terrible connection for it because all the stress between the two pots is on the capacitor. And you see what happens here when that stress gets too much. So I'm going to redo this properly, and I'll show you what I mean by properly. And I've got the rig set up here. Pardon me, I got some sniffles. The weather keeps changing, and I'm going to put the jack here and the switch here and redo all the wiring. These are RS Guitar Works pots. They're regular CTS 500K audio for the tones, and they're super pots for the volumes. Now, the super pots are really good. They're relatively expensive, but I really like their taper and feel. I also like the ones that Mojo Tone has called True Vintage or whatever, but they're out of stock right now. And for Telecasters or Strats, where people do a lot of volume sweeps, I really like the Emerson pots as well, which have a lower friction. So this is not an ad for the RS Guitar Works, though they are quite good pots that they have CTS make to their spec. But these, like the Mojo Tones, don't turn as freely, which is really good in a 335 or Les Paul or SG, where you're not doing a lot of volume sweeps, or in a Strat if you keep hitting that volume because it's right there by where your hand goes. Because you want it to, if you turn it to 7, you want it to stay at 7 until you change it. Whereas a Tele, on my Tele, I don't have the Emersons. I've put the Emersons in others. On my Tele, I just took a pot and detensioned it. But for these, I really like them. You'll hear them when I'm done. So let me pause here because I've got some soldering to do to get this all built up the right way. This is a pet peeve of mine. What good is having insulation on your wires if it's pushed back or stripped back to the point where the bare wires can touch? So I don't know if this is factory or whether this is part of the road repair, but it's going to get fixed. Okay, all ready to reconnect the pickups, put back in the guitar. Well, I've got to put the tooth washers onto the pots and jack with a little bit of clear nail polish, let that set up so those don't fall off when I'm in the process of pulling them in place. But everything's neatened up. All the insulation is actually insulating now. This is not the traditional Gibson scheme, but it is electronically equivalent in terms of how the grounds are done. There's no ground loops. Everything is at ground. Crucially, if one of the tooth washers were to give way, wood swells and contracts as temperature and humidity changes. So you can have these tight, and you just go through a real humid summer or followed by a real dry winter, and things can get a little bit loose. But now, if any of the pots were to get loose, none of the connections will be stressed because there's just enough slack to keep that from tugging on a connection. All the connections are reinforced with soldered on the shield. The leads are all nice and neat. The caps are now no longer connecting the tone and volume pots. They're just permanently at the tone pot. So that's a big source of stress out. I use these small Panasonics, both because they sound really good and because they're very physically small, and that's a consideration when putting things into a 335. I have bridge pickup attached, heat shrink where necessary so that it cannot ground out things that should not be grounded out, including here by the in case it were to brush up against the pickup selector switch. So now the fun part of pulling all this into place and soldering the neck pickup in place, but I'll just do all my cussing off screen. Okay, got everything pulled through. I've tried aquarium tubing, I've tried dental floss, I've tried a whole bunch of stuff. I find that 22 gauge bus wire works the best. It's pretty simple. I just tie it around the split shaft on the pot like you wind a guitar string if you want to do the locking system on a Fender. On this one, I've just got a spare nut wrapped around the other end, and that'll push that through and out and pull it out the F-hole. I'm going to do that off camera, but it's pretty simple. Just the weight of that pulls it up, and then it falls back down. So this damage to the F-hole here, that's not me. I think that was probably caused by that field repair that made me start this whole process. So if you're going to work on guitars, you learn to drape towels, paper towels, whatever it works. You want to protect that finish, so that shouldn't happen. So at the same time, I'm sure someone's paying $10,000 for a relic thing from Gibson, which already has that. So, you know, the world's a weird place. Okay, all done and working. I'm not going to do a real video of this because, you know, this guitar has been heard quite a bit through some really nice amps. I'm just playing through a little pod thing just to hear that it's working. So time to reunite this with its owner. And the tone knob there is missing on purpose. He lost it on a gig somewhere, and he kind of likes the look. So be it. It's his decision. And should last a lot longer than the factory, and certainly a lot longer than that road repair. So I'm calling it done.